moment to breathe, grab a beverage or two. We got professional guests with lots of stories for you. So take a seat right here and join us on Careers Over Beers.
Welcome to Careers Over Beers podcast. I'm the host, Jesse Kraus, once again, guys. And real quick before I get started, I just wanted to shout out this hat. I don't know if you can see it very well on there, but Anathea Rivera and her husband own Alpha Bravo Custom Designs, and they made this hat for me that says Careers Over Beers. So thank you very much for that, guys. I appreciate it. Now you need to get your ass on here and do a podcast with me. All right? So today is a pretty cool episode. It's a special episode. I'm interviewing my old man.
Yes, I'm here in person.
My old man, Patrick Kraus. And Pat Kraus is what?
CFO.
And an accountant.
I am an accountant, yes. I am an accountant. I'm the chief financial officer for a company here in Wichita, Kansas, Lubrication Engineers, Inc. I got the shirt on right here.
Got the shirt to match it right there.
Right.
Yep.
Yep, it's a high-performance lubricant company. I tell people that they think of lubricants, they start thinking, well, what are you? And I'm like, no, it's not the sexy lubricants.
Yeah, it's not the sexy world.
It's industrial lubricants. So we're on the up and up.
Yep. So I finally got the old man in here. I know I've been telling him for a while now, and I was like, Dad, you got to get on here. You know, I'm not going to interview another accountant because you're the main one in my life. So
honored to be here and love your podcast. I hope more people join and watch this. This is very interesting, and I've learned a lot about some other careers that I knew nothing about.
Yes, you've been supportive, and I appreciate it. So today we're drinking a different drink than usual. What do we got?
Well, so yes, one of my favorite drinks, and one of my favorite drinks is a red beer, which if you don't know is just beer and tomato juice and a little bit of salt.
Don't spill the salt.
Don't spill the salt. And I fell in love with this drink while you're getting those out. I fell in love with this drink from my dad. His grandpa used to work at Cessna out in the factory and worked his butt off every day out there in the heat. And every day he came home and he had one drink around 4:30, 5 o'clock in the evening. And his choice was a red beer. And he drank Pabst, so this is in honor of him. It's not so important when you have a red beer what beer you drink, but this is in honor of my father, John.
Yeah.
And
for Grandpa.
For Grandpa, yeah. So
for a red beer, you're just mixing a beer with one of these cans?
With one can of tomato juice. I actually like it fairly strong, so I'll use pretty much the whole can in here and then just top it off as I drink it off. It probably won't all fit in here, but the big difference is to make sure I'll use the whole can. Yes.
Use the whole can of tomato juice.
Whole can of tomato juice, and
I know you're a big tomato juice fan.
I do love tomato juice.
It's kind of weird.
Putting it in a frosted mug is important. That makes a big difference. So shake the can a little bit.
Yeah, you insisted on bringing these frosted mugs in.
Frosted mugs. All right. Frosted mugs are important. So
do tomato juice first.
I'll pour, part of the tomato juice in, and I'll put some beer on top and just kind of mix it up a little bit.
Tomato juice first, huh?
Yeah, you can do it however you want. Just the main thing is just to kind of get it mixed up in there.
Yeah. Not all floating on top.
And you'll get a little bit of a head on this thing, but
this is the first red beer we've had on the show. So that's another first today.
So if you pour it too fast, yours is going to foam up and run over just like that.
Hey, so that's a nice shot, though. Look at that.
Oh, yeah, it is.
That's how a beer should look at a bar.
That is a cool shot.
So that's all right.
I'll put the rest of this in here. And then, like I say, I've got a little bit of beer left in here. I'll drink it down. And then it always takes just a dash of salt on the top.
Really?
Not too much, just a dash on top.
It's good for your blood pressure.
For your blood pressure.
Yeah.
That's probably plenty.
All right. Well, cheers to you.
Cheers.
Cheers to Grandpa.
Cheers.
Red beers.
Oh, that's good.
Foam in the mustache.
Put a little bit of foam in the mustache there, so you might want to wipe that off.
You like that mustache? You used to rock a mustache back in the day.
I used to rock a mustache.
That's good stuff.
That is good stuff.
That is good. I couldn't probably drink that all day long, but that does hit the spot when you need it.
And it is very good stuff. And this is my go-to if there's tomato juice available, or if I'm at a bar and I'm just going to have a couple drinks. A red beer
hits the spot.
Way to go.
And you like Bloody Marys too, right?
I do like Bloody Marys.
It's got a similar flavor there, especially with the salt.
Either one. Probably not a good one to drink too much and get sick on, because if you get sick, it looks like you're throwing up blood, but it's not. But it kind of burns on the way out. So
how did you used to differentiate between blood and red beer back in the day?
I didn't. I didn't have to worry about it. It was all beer.
All right. Well, Dad, tell us about what you do, or how you got started, I guess, in the accounting world.
Started, I guess, take back to maybe high school years. I did hear a podcast of my son Jesse here. Actually, it was a podcast he did about a week ago with his teacher, who talked about how maybe he didn't do
Mr. Smarsh.
Mr. Smarsh, yeah. Didn't do so great maybe in high school. That probably came from me. So cheers to...
you think that came from you?
It came from me a little bit, yes.
Is that right? Why do you say that?
I didn't apply myself in high school probably like I should have.
So there's still hope for me?
There's still hope for you. That's right. There's still hope for you. But anyways, by the time I got maybe to junior, senior year, I guess even in freshman, sophomore year, you can say that I didn't try as hard as I could have. Ended up being like I just wanted to get out. I was just
I know the feeling.
You know the feeling, right? You had the exact same feeling. So I was burned out of school. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And so probably didn't get the grades that I could have. And I graduated actually at semester senior year. Back then, when I graduated, it seemed like a lot of people did that. There are not so many nowadays, but...
Graduated like halfway through your senior year?
Halfway through senior year.
See, I did half days, but I didn't graduate early.
Yeah, so I graduated early. At the time then, I was looking to get a job at the post office. A lot of our family worked in the post office. And
so what year is this?
This is 1979. 1979, and I was working through high school at a grocery store here in Colwich, Kraus Grocery.
Yeah, and shout out to Jeff Kraus, by the way.
Jeff Kraus, yes.
You need to get on here too.
Yes, that's right, Jeff. Get out here, Jeff. Worked for his dad, Kenny, and it was a great job. I enjoyed it going through high school, and right when I graduated, I was still working there. But I was looking to get a job in the post office because my mom worked there. She was postmaster at Colwich, and I had some family members that were mail carriers. So I was like, I just want to get out of school. I just want to go to work.
You were just like, oh, this is a safe option. This is just something easy that I know.
It's a safe option. It was a civil service job, paid well, very good benefits, good retirement benefits.
Which it still has.
And it still does.
I mean, it was probably more back then due to inflation and stuff.
It was more back then. And so I took the civil service exam and did well on it and got a job as a mail carrier. So I started working in Wichita as a mail carrier all over the city as a substitute.
What's the civil service exam? Is that required to be a mailman?
Yeah, it's something you have to take. Anybody in kind of a federal job to take a test.
Okay,
and it's not like you can't study for it. It's just more of an aptitude type.
Just
test.
More of like a
speed,
making sure you're not an idiot.
Well, it's more of a speed and accuracy type test, just to see that you can basically look at stuff and deliver it correctly and make out the numbers and. Just I don't know. It wasn't hard by any means, but it took it was more of like a speed and aptitude type test. So, anyways, got through that, got offered the job, so I went to work there, and I ended up working there 2 years, and was carrying mail, and for whatever reason, maybe it was God sent, but. It was some brutal weather for those 2 years. So it was super hot summers? Super hot, blazing summers, and the winters were just brutal. Cold, snow, ice, a lot more than what we get nowadays, and it was just brutal.
And the whole time you're just walking around with a mail bag on your side?
I got a mail bag, yeah. Sometimes you think of maybe being what they called mounted, which was people who drive in a mail Jeep and deliver, but mine was walking, so it was a lot of walking. So there's
dealing with dogs?
Dealing with dogs, yeah. I learned how to handle dogs through that. A lot of times it's the bigger dogs or the finest, those little yappers that just grab at your ankles.
Yeah, those little rats.
Those are the ones that are far worse. So summers were so hot then. When we had, I don't know, probably 45, 50 days over 100 degrees in those 2 summers. And it was just so brutally cold, and it just rained a lot. So here I was, cold, wet, hot, all these things. And while I'm delivering mail to different homes and businesses, sometimes I'd come upon offices, and I'd walk in, and I'm like, dang.
These people are just chilling.
Well, these people are chilling. Or I'd walk by and look in a window, and I'd see somebody in an office working. And I thought, here I'm out here, freezing my butt off, or just, sweating like a dog, and
they're just sitting in there in this warm,
and they're sitting in there looking out at me thinking, dang, I'll bet he's cold out there or he's hot or something. So anyways, as I kept going, I guess it's about 2 years into it, I thought, I think I want that. That interests me. I think I want
that office gig.
Yeah, I think I want that office gig. I think I'm ready for that. and I think I'm ready to apply myself. And so I think I'm going to go back to school. So I made the decision to get out of the post office, and it was a hard decision because it was
because you were throwing away that career that you thought you had with the benefits and everything.
Yes, exactly.
The government job, right?
It was a known. It was an unknown to step out and figure out what I was going to do.
Yeah.
But it was a known thing. It would have been a career job and a great job. And like I say, most of my family, not most, but quite a bit of my family were
and
working for the post
people
office.
make great careers out of the post office
and a great careers.
And a good retirement.
So I decided to make a decision to make a change. So I went back to school and thought, well, you know what am I going to do? So I was kind of interested in electronics. So I thought, well, I'm going to go into like something like electronics, electrical engineering. So I started in that. I was kind of unsure what I want to do. I just knew that I kind of wanted that desk job, that office job.
Yep.
And got started in that. And while I was in that, I had some computer classes I took, and I thought, well, kind of like that too. Computers were kind of beginning to be a big thing back then. There was IBM had a computer that they came out with, a personal computer, and like nobody knew how to.
And you're like, what?
Nobody knew what that meant, or it was just supposed to make our life easy. And everybody would say, "What are you going to use that computer for?" And we'd say, "Well, to balance my checkbook." But nobody knew what that meant to do it on a computer, and there wasn't really there weren't any programs written for it.
There was no graphic interface either. It was just text, right?
It was just text. Yes, it was just text, and there wasn't much you could do.
So this is like the mid '80s.
This is the early '80s.
Early '80s.
The early '80s.
So it's like you get a 12 megabyte hard drive and just green text.
Well, no, the first computer that I had no hard drive. It actually just had floppy disks, which was a term that the younger generation doesn't.
And they were actually floppy.
They were actually floppy. That's what they called it. So we would store things on those floppy disks.
Yeah.
And then a couple years later, we got a computer that actually had a 1 megabyte hard drive. Now that sounds funny, right? Because we're talking megabytes like that, 1 megabyte, and we were just dumbfounded because it could hold so much information on it. We just didn't know how to act. So it was pretty cool. But think back to the I'm digressing here, but but real quick, the computers back then, they had a C prompt. There was no interface. There was no Windows. There was no nothing. So you had to type in commands at the.
It's just all like command line.
It's all command line stuff that you had to type things in. So I was interested in computers, but while I thought, I switched over to computer major. I thought I'm going to do this instead. But then while I was taking some computer classes, I had to take some accounting classes, and I thought, well, I kind of like this.
So before that, you had never considered accounting?
No, I did have a bookkeeping class in high school that was semi-interesting, as exciting as bookkeeping could be, I guess. But I thought, well, this is pretty simple. It seems like this couldn't be bad. So I reflected back to that, and I thought, well, I'm going to take some more of these accounting classes. So I took the first and second accounting classes while I was still discerning what I wanted to do, and thought, well, figured out that I was pretty good at this. I could do this stuff. And I remember my first accounting class I walked into at WSU, I got there like right on time for the class, first day of class, and the classroom was completely full. I didn't even have a chair.
Yeah.
They had more people in the room than what they had chairs for, and they had to go grab some from another room to sit there, because if you're a business major, you have to take an accounting class.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
there's just a ton of business people that all required this class.
All required a class.
Jammed into one room.
All jammed into one room to take this class. And a lot of people who are business majors thought, well, this accounting's going to be easy. Accounting's easy, so this is going to be a PUD.
Yeah, it's just adding numbers, right?
Yes, it's just a PUD class. That's what everybody thinks, right? So I get in there, and I remember our teacher that first day, the first thing he said was, "Oh, those of you that are standing, don't worry. You will have a seat very soon." And
Why?
I'm like, well, found out because within a week, we probably had a third of the class dropped the class.
Really?
Because
they're just like, nah, not doing that.
Not for me. I can't do this. Can't handle it. And by the time we finished the class, there was less than half the people in the classroom.
Wow.
Maybe even 40% of people.
So it wasn't just balancing a checkbook.
No, a lot more to it than that. So anyway, kind of had an.
You're gonna have to fill me in, because that's what I picture it still, kind of. Even though you've been my dad my whole life. I'm like, what do you just go to work and just add numbers up?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Can you just add numbers up? That's I know. So we can get into that for a minute too.
Yeah, that's what I picture, because I took, basic accounting in high school, and it was learning how to balance a ledger and a checkbook, and I didn't do very good in that class either. But
so I went through and graduated with an accounting degree. And the next step after that is where you're going to work, what you're going to do with it. Well, you can become a what's called a CPA. And it's called a certified public accountant. And I had my eyes on that because that's like the gold star, the thing.
That's the premier thing. If you're going to be an accountant, to
Yes.
become a CPA.
Yes, to become a CPA, to get that license for that. So I knew several people that had taken that test, and that test is pretty rigorous. It's a 2.5-day test. I think it's changed a little bit back. There's 2.5 days in a row. There are no computers, so this was all on paper. You're working through problems, and it was tough.
That sounds miserable.
I don't think we had a calculator either. Or
2.5 days of taking a single test?
Yeah. The test, the pass rate on the test was less than 10%.
Wow.
Less than 10%, okay? So I spent 4 months studying for this test. This is my last semester of college, and
yeah, I've seen pictures of you studying for that test in Grandma's scrapbooks that she has, where you're laying there on a table, and this is like the mid '80s, and you have beer cans all around you and books all around you, and you're just studying for that CPA exam.
It was hard. Well, I became very focused because I thought, you know what, I don't want to be one of those that doesn't pass this because you have to take it. You could take it every 6 months. I didn't want to be that person studying every 6 months to take this test, so I became bound and determined to pass this test the first time, and I did. So I put the time in it, and again, it's about what the time you put into it, and studied hard for it, and had listened to cassette tapes, which is a relic from the past. Also,
yeah, what's
that had
that?
stuff on it, and these big thick books, and work through it. And
think about the resources people have now, though, with YouTube videos and all the online stuff. I mean, you probably don't know because it was so long ago you took that exam, but I wonder if it's easier now. You think?
I don't know. I mean, I know it's computerized now. I'm not sure whether.
I mean, you work with other CPAs. Have they ever said that it's easier? They've used resources like younger dudes.
Yeah,
younger girls too.
I still know it's. I know it's still a very rigorous test to
really
pass.
Rigorous.
Yes, very very tough to pass. I don't know comparing between the two if it was harder back then or not, but I do know it's still a very
well. If you're hearing the younger people say it's just as hard, or then it's probably just as hard.
Yeah. So then after I passed it, then I had a couple of the older accountants say, "Do you know what CPA stands for?" Well, CPA stands for Certified Public Accountant. So after I had passed the test, I said, "No, CPA stands for couldn't pass again."
Oh, really?
And I thought, So as I reflected on that later, I thought, that's probably right because it's very difficult to pass that test. So anyways, that was.
I wonder I would like to see the numbers on the people that fail that test and then are able to pass it later on,
Yes.
Because some people probably just aren't smart enough for it.
It's what you put into it. Because
or you're a bad test taker.
You could be a bad test taker. I don't know.
I mean, 2.5 days so you're going there testing for like 8 hours and then you go home and then you come back and finish the test?
There's 4 parts of the test. So you're taking. I don't remember how it was done now, but you're taking a part of the test and then you're going home. But it was equivalent of 2.5 days worth of testing. So
you knew from the start that you wanted to do the CPA route versus just being a regular accountant.
I did.
What do you do as a regular accountant without a CPA?
Well, so let me get to what I went into first, and I'll describe that other part because I got into that later. So when I graduated with CPA. I interviewed at several different companies. Some of them were just an accounting job at a company, or one of them was at a certified public accounting firm that does audits and tax work. I was drawn towards the CPA firm to work because then you could pass the CPA exam and get your CPA, that you passed the test, but to get a license, you have to have 2 years worth of experience working in public accounting, it's called.
Okay.
So I wanted to go to work for one of those companies because I wanted this license. So I interviewed for there were 3 separate CPA firms that I interviewed with, and then I took a job with back then when it was called KMG Main Herdman, a mouthful, but that's what the name of the company. It's morphed since then. Now it's called Allen Gibbs and Hulick here in Wichita. So I took a job there and doing auditing and tax work. So what does auditing mean? So when people think of audit, they think of, an IRS agent who's coming in.
Yeah, they think of like, Trump's tax returns. They're going to sift through and try to find things that are irregular or whatever.
So he's the bad guy who's coming in. He's going to check your tax return, and he's going to give you a big fine and penalty and interest because you didn't pay enough taxes. That's not what this is. This is you're, I guess, a good guy for a company because you are hired by companies that need somebody to come in to check their books and records to make sure they're right. And so if I'm a company, company A, and why would I need to have an auditor come in? Well, because I probably have something like a bank loan. So I'm running my business. I needed a loan to buy some equipment or even to start the business. So a bank's going to loan me money. So how does a bank loan you money? They want collateral, and they want to know, are your financial statements, which tell you how your business is doing. Are you making any money? What assets do you have? What liabilities do you have? Are those right? And the only way to really, for the bank to be assured that they're right, is to have a CPA, an auditor come in and check them over to do tests and make sure.
What does that mean you're doing? Are you looking at their physical assets and determining if that's worth something or not?
That's part of it. Part of it is it's what's called a balance sheet, and a balance sheet is a picture point in time of what does the company own. So if you look in your room here, what do you own? Well, this is a hard asset. So you have a listing of all the things that you own, which is called a fixed asset. So think of it as equipment. You have inventory. So it's checking really to see, do you own the things? Do you have all the things you have listed out here? Do you have $1 million worth of equipment? Where's it at? I want to test it.
Do people try to fake that all the time?
Not all the time, but there's people that do that. And then inventory is another thing people have. It's, again, testing to make sure that they have the inventory they say they have. What liabilities do you have? What do you owe? Who do you owe? It's checking all, and you have accounts receivable. Is that right? Is cash right? You're checking all these balances to make sure that what a person says they have, they have.
So you're talking about doing that for the bank that's giving the loan, right? So the bank's trying to make sure. Now, do companies also have people that run internal audits and cook the books internally?
Oh yeah, we can get into that too. That there's things like that happen.
Yeah,
there's fraud that certainly exists out
Having
there.
a CPA on the business side that's basically forging and presenting fake information for the banks, that looks legitimate.
Well, I mean, and that's why banks want to have audited financial statements, which are. I'm a business. I produce these financial statements to give to the bank. So the bank says, okay, now you have to hire an outside firm to check it over, and they're going to sign their name on this and put an opinion on it that those numbers are materially, remember, you're not checking everything, but are materially correct. So that doesn't mean you're like making sure everything is down to the penny, but what does material
Close
mean?
enough.
Close enough. You could use that term, right?
Is it similar to a lawyer in terms of like getting what is it called, disbarred or debarred?
Oh, you mean
if you were your CPA license, can you lose that if you?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you say something's right and it's wrong, or let's say that you're doing taxes for somebody and you cheat on it, absolutely, you could lose your license. But it's not just losing your license. You start messing with, especially the government, and cheating, then you're talking about prison time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's some bad things that can happen. So it keeps most people.
Unless you're really good.
Unless you're really good. And I always think that the really good ones are what? They have never been caught. Right? So you read about people in the news that are doing fraud and bad things. And
they're bad ones.
Well, they might not be as good. They get caught eventually, but some have never been caught.
Yeah.
And get very good at it.
Yeah.
Right? So as an auditor, you're checking to make sure the numbers are right. You're also looking at what's called the income statement, which is taking the revenues less all your costs, coming up with net income. So it's validating that, yes, they're making money, they're losing money, whatever the case is, and that they're, again, materially correct, so that the bank feels comfortable that, okay, you can pay back your loan to us. That's what it's for.
So you were actually doing this?
Yes, I was doing this. I was the auditor going into businesses, actually checking their books and records and working on that. So I'd do that, and they were long hours typically, especially during what's called tax season, where I was an auditor going out to a company for a week or two and going through all their financials, their books and records, making sure that they were accurate. And then during tax season, which is like from January to April 15th every year, I would then go back into the office, and they'd have a big pile of tax returns sitting on my desk.
That doesn't sound fun at all to me.
So from like 5 o'clock to 8 or 9 o'clock at night during that year, I would work on that stuff, tax returns.
5 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock
at
night?
I would start, usually probably 7 or 7:30 in the morning and do audit work until like 5 o'clock. And then I'd go from the company I was auditing to the office, and then I would do tax returns from 5 o'clock.
That sounds miserable. How's that appealing to anybody?
Well, it wasn't ever meant to be a lifetime doing that type of work.
Yeah. Did you enjoy that?
Well, I don't know if I was enjoyable. I learned a lot, and that's what I was looking for, was experience.
Okay.
And so I felt I could get more well-rounded doing this type of auditing work, And then also learning the tax side of things. So you have to have some tax experience too to also become a CPA, audit and tax. So I was getting all of that crammed in and to that short period of time. And it was interesting. I learned a ton, and I think it helped me with my career further down the line. Some people stay in this public accounting world forever and become a manager and a partner and do that their entire lives. Others move out to what's called then the private business side, which was what I did. So after I'd done that for 2 years, I had got my license and I could have, I could have either stayed or I could go somewhere. And a job opportunity came up to me with a company called Casco Plastics here in Wichita. To come work as a controller. And so I thought, well, I might be interested in doing that.
What's a controller?
Controller then is actually working for one company, and then he's responsible for the books and records of the company, basically making sure that everything flows within the company properly up through the financial statements.
Doesn't that sound kind of like overwhelming? If you gave me that job description, just me right now, and I had to take over a company's books, and I'm the sole controller right there, that's kind of like nerve-wracking. I mean, it seems like a lot to take on.
Well, I mean, it could be if you didn't have the experience at it. I mean, any job you'd walk into, and if you didn't know what that job entailed and how to do it, you'd be just lost.
I mean, you're talking about a company probably worth millions of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands, that you're the guy running it, right?
Well, running the financial part of it, correct. And typically you have people working for you that do accounts payable, accounts receivable. You're responsible for the financial part, all the books and records. You're responsible for typically overseeing the insurance, banking relationships. There's a lot involved in it.
So that was your first real big position job? Where you were kind of in charge?
Yes, where I was kind of in charge. I did have what was called a CFO, which I am now. That was above me at the time, so that's the next level up that I eventually moved to. But I did a lot of the day-to-day work. And so the experience that I got working in public accounting was very beneficial, and I feel it made me a better accountant overall because I had been into many different businesses now, seeing how they operated, what they did, and that was very interesting work because you'd get to understand a business inside and out when you were auditing it.
Did you ever see any businesses when you were going through that were just in a horrible position? You're like, holy shit, I don't know how they're still floating right now.
Oh yeah, I saw some that were They were razor thin on making any money, and sometimes even losses. And you'd go in and just like, oh man, I don't know if this company's even going to make it.
Yeah.
So yes, I got to see that. Never really got to. You mentioned fraud earlier. Never really got to catch anybody, I guess, doing anything because most of them that were audited had been audited for many years by the time I got there. So it wasn't like you were walking in on something that was shady.
Yeah.
But like I said, the best ones haven't been caught. There's people. And one of the things you're also checking are internal controls when you're an auditor is making sure that there's a segregation of duties. So that let's say that you had 5 people in your accounting department, but yet you're the one who all the money came into you, the checks and the money, and you deposited it in the bank, and you reconciled the bank statements, and you took care of all the books and records yourself. Well, then you could hide things, move things around, and basically cheat and pocket money. And so with this segregation of duties, you're like, no, Bob, you're going to do this, and Sally, you're going to do that. And you separate it so that now it's harder to cheat because someone else is basically doing part of that work and can catch it. So the worst thing you could see is there's somebody in the accounting department that never takes a vacation. No, someone who works in the accounting department, you have to take a vacation. And it should be forced upon somebody.
It's mandatory.
It should be mandatory because that's a lot of times if someone never takes one, not saying that sometimes there are people just hard worker and never take one, but people who are hiding things or are trying to cover up things can't have somebody else looking at what they're doing, right? Right. So you're a big proponent of forcing people to use their vacation days? Well, especially in accounting, yes, because you got to have honest people doing that, and you want to make sure
that they can never step away from their duties and let somebody else kind of peek in.
Exactly. And that's how some people have been caught over the years by doing that. It's like, well, they haven't had a vacation in 10 years. They're hard workers. Well, they're also,
Yeah, and they have 10 cars now. And
they have 10 cars. They have 10 cars in a new house, and what's going on here?
Yeah.
And periodically you see that in the news where people have stolen millions of dollars from companies over the years. And they've found a way to hide it from everybody.
Yeah. But one thing that's also kind of interested me is when you're like the CFO or you're the lead accountant at a company, you're setting the salaries usually, or you're setting the pay for people and stuff. and you're also doing it for yourself. Isn't that kind of weird?
No, that's not true. You're not.
It's not.
You don't set it for yourself. So you're not actually setting it for. There's other people, managers involved, and other company executives that are involved in making those decisions. So it's usually their immediate supervisor that's making recommendations.
So it's not very common that an accountant is just paying himself out the ass and.
No. Now,
because the board of the company probably steps in too, right?
The board oversees executive management. Yeah, so you're not setting your own salary. That's now if you were the owner and also the one being the accountant or the controller or the CFO.
Yeah,
well, that's a different story.
What about the people below you though? If you're the CFO, are you usually working their payout and stuff too?
Depends on usually the ones in your department. You are, yes, and at times especially at the CFO level, you do have, like currently with lubrication engineers, that myself along with a couple of the other guys, the president and COO, are involved in making those decisions. Typically, someone might recommend that somebody gets a 25% raise, but ultimately we have the call to say no, that doesn't add up. And think about it, you can't give everybody 25-50% raises every year, because then again you won't have any money at the end of the day to run the company, right? So a company is for profit, and you got to remember that unless it's a non-for-profit company, you have to make a profit to keep the company in business. And that's what's I guess. Let me add this. That's what makes it interesting to the accounting side, is because if you don't understand, what a company's doing as far as generating cash and bringing money to the bottom line, you can't make a sound business decision. So you need that information to be able to say, am I making money? What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And you analyze things and look at different products and product lines, and you can make decisions whether that's worth keeping or that's not worth keeping, and make decisions about equipment to buy and paybacks. So there's a lot more involved in it than most people think. Yeah,
because most people that are below you guys looking up at the bosses, and they're thinking of you as like this guy on Christmas Vacation, National Lampoons, that has this 50-foot table sitting there going, we're cutting their bonuses this year. We can save a penny there. We can save a penny. We're gonna give them a membership to the, what do you call it, Wally World Club or something.
Yeah, and so that's typically not the case, because again, and what some people don't understand is you still have to make money at the end of the day. You can't just give away all the profits or you're out of business and everybody loses their job, and we don't want that. So it has to be a profitable company at the end of the day.
Let me ask you this.
Support the salaries.
For companies like yours, there's probably a lot of bonuses involved sometimes at the end of the year or whatever. Where does that extra cash for bonuses usually come from? Is it extra profits that you guys have, or is it stuff you factor in already?
It's typically factored in throughout the year, yes, that you're accounting for those bonuses. And then a lot of times there's bonuses like we even pay based on profitability. So it might be that, you get a certain amount of bonus, but you'll get some extra bonus, let's call it, if the company is profitable through the year. So by the end of the year, then you calculate and say, oh, okay, bonuses are going to be 10% bigger than last year because we had a much better year. So it's kind of getting everybody trying to pulling the rope the same direction, saying that we're all in this together. Don't waste things. Let's all be mindful of expenses, and let's try and keep this so that we can all keep our jobs and make more money.
If you're good and you're an honest person, you're going to try to make what's best for the company and your employees.
Correct.
You don't want to get greedy and try to cut corners, and then people end up pissed off.
No, you don't want to do the Christmas vacation thing. That doesn't work so well.
It's crazy because people do rely on those bonuses as part of their salary.
They do, and that's always, we kind of laugh sometimes about bonuses, that if you give somebody let's say I gave you a $10,000 bonus this year, but next year only gave you $2,000. You'd be
exactly. You're like, what the hell?
Yeah, what
These
the hell?
These guys are sitting there conspiring against me.
Exactly, they're conspiring against me, or like I was planning on that, and just like at Christmas vacation, like I was putting a pool in, and now what am I going to do because I was planning on 10, you gave me 2. So it's something, and a lot of times it becomes more like, think of it almost like a raise or an increase in salary, because it's hard to take bonuses away from people, and that's understandable. I mean,
that brings me to another good point. As far as like financials go, like people that are relying on that to build a pool or something, that's probably not the best decision. As an accountant and a CFO and somebody that's been doing this for over 40 years now, what's your best financial advice for people?
Don't spend more than what spend above your means. So, and that's where budgeting becomes important, especially for people who credit cards are. If you can manage them properly, they're good. But a lot of people, it becomes like free money. And I think everybody in their youth has maybe found that out, where they flip the credit card out and think, oh, this is easy. And then they get that.
It's free money. You can charge as much as you want. I can just pay $40 minimum payment.
It's free money, and that's what the banks and those that put out the credit cards are hoping is that that you make those minimum payments. Because if you look at the minimum payment, and if you look at your place on your statement of your credit card, it says if you pay this $1,000 balance off over a course of 25 years, it's going to be many more thousands more than what you started with, right? So they make a lot of money on those.
Oh, they make so much money on those credit cards.
So budgeting is important from the standpoint of making sure you stay within your means and you don't overspend. So be careful of credit cards, certainly.
What about as far as putting a certain percentage into your 401k or retirement funds or stuff like that, or even investing in stocks or shares of your own company?
Yeah, I mean, it's important. Obviously, retirement is especially when you're young, and certainly I tell employees at our company and companies I've been involved with is take advantage of your company's match, like in a 401k plan, immediately, because some people don't, and that's just free money that's just given away. So it's important that you put in as much as you can, especially when you're young, and that's the importance of saving.
Especially early on. We've looked at these charts before. Remember?
You and I have looked at these charts that if you put money away, you're right when you graduate, from college, let's say.
Yeah.
For the first 10 years, you could stop, and you're still going to be ahead of somebody who started when they were 35. And saved until they were 65.
Exactly. Yeah. If you invest early on, especially in your early 20s. It's astronomical when you get to those last years where you're getting ready to retire. The way it goes up, I mean, it's just crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So those matches are important from the sense that, the company's giving you money. You can't see it, so that's why a lot of people maybe don't put in as much as they should. Because if like our company will match 75 cents on the dollar up to 6%. So if you put in $1 of your money, then if I'm the company, I'm going to put in 75 cents on top of every dollar you put in.
Right.
Think about that. That's a lot.
That's literally free money. I mean,
that's
here's
right.
your money you earned, and the company's going to go ahead and give you a little bit more.
And so I've used
Whereas
that.
If you don't, you're not even seeing that 75 cents.
Yep. So I've used that example just in with some of our employees before we do our annual enrollment meeting for 401k, where I'll just even had set $1 in front of somebody and said, okay, let's say that, or you put $1 out, so I'll have that person set $1 out, and then I'll take 3/4 and set it on top of that. And I said, now how many dollars will you put out? As long as I keep putting 3/4 on top of it. Well, if you thought about that, you'd be like, well, I keep putting dollars out as long as you keep putting 3/4 on, and I get to pull it back. I'll do that all day long.
Right.
I said, well, that's what you're doing here. That's what we're doing here right now with this 401k. Only you're just not seeing it until you get retirement age.
And that's what the problem is. People are so short-sighted.
Well, it's short-sighted, and I can't see it. I can't put my arms around it because it's in an investment, and I don't necessarily understand what's going on with it. But certainly when you get to be 65, 70 years old, it's important to have some money saved out there. So, yeah, start saving as early as you can. And if you don't understand it, get somebody that can help you understand, the importance of doing that.
Well, thank God that you were my dad, because I would probably be a complete disaster if you weren't. With my spending habits, and the way my lifestyle is, it's not the best as far as financials go.
No, but everybody has their own pace of learning that, and I think like I said, everybody young does something dumb with credit cards, and gets behind on those. So they learn real quickly on that one. But you just don't want to get to those twilight years and not have enough money to where now all of a sudden I've got to go be a Walmart greeter. And maybe some people want to be a Walmart greeter, but there's others that are doing it because they have to.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, but to counter that, the 18-year-old in me wants to say, live fast, die young. Enjoy it now, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's a big thing to counter, and you're invincible when you're young. We all think that way, right?
Yeah.
Live forever, and I, money, it's not important. I just, I'll pick up.
Blow it as you go.
I'll just blow it as I go, and.
So, as a CFO, are you? Do you play a part in determining like what's matched and stuff as in your 401ks by the company?
Yes.
Okay.
Certainly part of making any major business decisions a CFO is involved in. So work with, again, upper executive management and with the board on major decisions of the company, which directions the company's going to go.
Buying other companies.
Yes, buying other companies.
Do you guys offer shares of the company to employees?
We don't. We're a private company, and private means that they're held within the company themselves. A public company is a company that has shares that's available to the general public and to employees. But there are companies that do offer sometimes shares internally to their company that are a private company. We just don't happen to be one of those. Most companies don't do that.
Let me ask you this though: as far as like shares go in a company, how many shares do you have to own? Like, what percentage of it to become an actual partner? If you're going to be like a partner or a part owner or whatever, do you know that answer?
I don't know. Anybody can be a part owner just buying one share. So I mean,
are you considered a partner though if you just have one share?
Well, no, because there's titles in the company. So like the CPA firm I was talking about, that there's a title called a partner in that. Usually, if you're somebody who's going to be like a major player in the company, you'd be at a minimum 10 or 20% owner of the company, right? To be able to consider it a major owner of the company. Otherwise, you'd be considered a minority. It's nice to get ownership, but that's the beauty of like the stock market, is because you can become a part owner of Amazon, right? If you buy one share, you can say you're an owner.
Should have done that in the 90s.
Should have done that in the 90s, yeah. I regret not doing that because I was following that company back then. And
I know. You told me that you were following Amazon early on, and it was just a bookstore at the time.
Yeah, it was very early on.
In the mid-90s?
It was a bookstore, and I just had been on their website, which they had a cool website even way back then.
Yeah.
And you could order books, and I remember watching them and thinking, dang, this could be something. And I was dumb and didn't put any money in it, but if I had, I'd been a multimillionaire many times over.
Yeah.
Just not even putting a lot into it. But so when you see those things, make sure you seize the moment, because there's some of those that you can just look at and you're like, wow, you know what, this is going to be something. I just looking at what they sell, how they go to market.
When you get that feeling, maybe.
When you get that feeling, yes, exactly.
Now, do you enjoy doing this work better? Like, what you're in your position now, you're making big business decisions. You're one of the leaders of the company. You're probably not really crunching numbers and stuff. Do you miss the workload of the past at all, or do you enjoy the further up you get, like in a position you are now?
Oh, I definitely enjoy it more now. That was a lot of work, but back then I didn't want to go back and do that again. But I don't regret it either, because like I said, I wouldn't get to where I was at now unless I had.
But there's probably a lot more responsibility where you're at now.
There's definitely a lot more responsibility.
And that doesn't bother you? You like that?
Oh yeah, no, I like it. Yes. It is responsibility. So you're when we think about our business, we have over 100 employees and we have sales representatives, about 70. But when you think about the number of people that are impacted by it, it's not just the employees, the 170, 180 people that we have working for the company, but also their spouses and their children. And you end up, well over 1,000 people that are dependent on us to make the right decisions for the company and for all these people. And a lot of them have been there
kind of fun
for many, many years. Yeah, so it's a big responsibility, but it's also a great company we work for, and we have a lot of great people that work there.
So you would encourage people then go ahead and go the CPA route, and even go further to like the CFO route if they get an opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. If a young person was asking me, do I want to get into, is accounting, being an accountant, that just sounds so boring, and just all you do is crunch numbers. It's far beyond that.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is everybody hears accountant, they're like, ugh. I mean, even this thumbnail and stuff that I'm going to have on my video here in the title, I'm sure people will scroll past this episode and go, "Oh,
they'll be so." Oh, that's. I'd rather go have a root canal at the dentist, than do that. And there's times it's tedious, absolutely. But think of it this way: every business has what you call a set of books. Every business has to have somebody doing that. So the jobs are out there.
Yeah, opportunities galore, probably.
Opportunities galore, because everybody needs somebody to keep their books in some way, and it doesn't have to be just keeping the books. You can graduate up to the other roles if you want to, get your CPA license, and you don't have to be a CPA to get high into business, to be a controller or CFO. You don't have to go that route.
Oh, you don't have to have your CPA to be a CFO?
Absolutely not.
Really?
Absolutely not. It was just a route I chose because I thought I could get more experience going that route, and that's why I chose that. I chose the harder route to go, but I thought I could learn more doing that. So don't regret that at all.
What's some advice you would give somebody to get further ahead than their peers? Like, if somebody wanted to be the CFO of a company, what's going to make them stand out?
Again, that CPA license is definitely going to stand out. Inserting yourself in the business, doing as much as you can get along, especially get along with people. Teamwork is very important with any business. I know just even my words of advice to somebody even just graduating school, getting their first job, and I think I told you this, is there's just a couple simple things to rise to the top just right off the bat. That's show up on time, so show up on time for your job, do your job, right, and actually work and do your best at it, and especially for the younger generation, don't play with your phone all day long, right? Put that phone away, right?
Yeah.
So if you do those simple things, they're not that hard. Put my phone away, do my job.
Well, no, you told me
show up on time, and you're going to be in the top 10% of the people working in the company.
Yeah, you told me a long time ago. You said if you just show up on time, you're already way ahead of
absolutely.
like 3/4 or something crazy.
Well, yeah. If you're always there on time, and again, get there a little before time and do your job, you're going to stand out, and people are going to be looking at you like, gosh, he's you got to develop some work ethic. And then you can use that then to
but you know how the world's going. We want beanbag chairs now.
You want beanbag chairs, that's right.
We want to work from home.
Want to work from home all this time off.
You are a boomer. You're a literal boomer, so I can say okay, boomer to everything. But I'm a big proponent of the 4-day work week. Let's bring that on.
Actually, I wouldn't have minded the 4-day work week growing up, going through. I would have loved that because the 3-day weekend would have been awesome.
I know, but boomers like you guys are, you show up and you work your 8-hour days. You work longer hours. Actually, you do it 5 or 6 days a week.
No one ever said we were smart, right?
It's just old school.
It's old school.
That's how you guys were raised.
It's old school. It's how we were raised, and it's how you do it.
Your parents probably worked even harder.
Oh, they did. And so. Working from home is a big thing now. It wasn't, 20, 30 years ago, it didn't hardly exist. Now, 20 years ago, I did have an opportunity to work from home, and I worked from home for 2 years. Being an accountant, there was the business I was working at had moved to El Paso, and I actually stayed at home and did the work from home.
Yep.
I'd be very disciplined, though, because we had young children. You were very young at the time. And so I had to tell Lori, my wife, that I'm at work. My office was in the basement.
Yeah, leave me alone.
I would go in the basement and shut the door in the basement to my office and said, I'm not here.
Yeah.
Because it took a little training for her too, because she was more like, hey, can you help with that? I'm like, I'm not here.
No, I'm at work.
I'm at work. So you can do it. I got a lot more done doing that. Some people are very disciplined, and
are there a lot of opportunities today for accountants that want to work from home?
There's actually a lot more than there used to be. Yes, I know a few people that actually work from home just for some companies, and that's what they do. Even the accounting job, the auditor job that I had, they do a lot of their work from home now.
Do they?
And why are they able to do that now? Because of technology, right? Because there's so many things you can work on through the computer and do through your phones.
Yep.
You can do Zoom calls. You can do so many things that we couldn't do back then that you actually had to be on site. It was the only actual way to do it. So they actually do a lot of their work from home.
Super appealing to people.
It's very appealing to the younger generation, and I don't blame them. I mean, that's you do get a miss though a lot of times the things that happen at the office, and but there's times you get a lot more done actually when you don't have all the interruptions. But
that's a big one.
Yes,
all the interruptions, all the people that you don't want to see or deal with too.
And I guess one of the things that I always wanted to get a lot done when I was at work is meetings. Probably aren't as many meetings when you're working from home because a lot of times meetings are just time killers, big time killers.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd learned. I learned later that there were some people that actually had meetings, and they were always stand-up meetings. And I wish we'd have implemented some of those over the years. That keeps people from just getting comfortable in their chair. And
what's a stand-up meeting?
Well, you just stand up around a table. There's no chairs.
Oh, really?
Yes, and it keeps the meetings from getting too long and drawn out.
That's genius.
It is very genius, and I wish we'd have implemented that when I was younger, because it would have prevented some of those 2-hour meetings that were you're just like, I just got 2 hours of my life I'm never going to get back. That what a waste of time.
It prevents that big boss sit there in this big old chair going, oh, all
right.
Oh,
yeah, it can be brutal.
Let's think about this.
It can be brutal. So if you think about standing around a table now talking, how long is people are going to stand there? They're going to get to the point, and they're going to make decisions, and they're going to get it done. Now go back to work and get your stuff done, right? And so it makes a lot of sense.
Some of the best decisions come around lunch, though, especially back in the day. You guys used to probably drink cocktails at lunchtime, right?
We were kind of on the tail end of that. So we tried not to, especially when I was working downtown as an auditor, because you really didn't want to go back to what we called a client's office and smell of alcohol.
Yeah, true.
So we had to be careful. We had to be careful of that.
That was a normal thing back then.
Back
in the
then,
80s,
probably even before then. It was like 3 martini lunch. It was.
Yeah.
I don't know how common it was because we didn't really do a lot of that.
I was born too late.
Maybe you were born too late, but
you could smoke inside every office building back then. You could have martinis on lunch.
Yeah, there definitely was a lot of smoking going on back then.
Going back real quick, I wanted to share this story with people. I know you probably don't, but you had a job offer in probably the late 90s, early 2000s for a company that saved marriages.
Oh, yes. Yeah, when was that? Maybe it was in the late 90s because the company I was working at was actually going out of business. It went through a buyout and didn't go so well. So I was interviewing, and so I got an interview with a company, and I asked, well, what's the name of the business? And this was just on the phone. And the guy said, well, we'll meet for lunch and we'll talk about that. And so we set up a time for a lunch and met him there, and we had lunch, and he started talking about the company. And I said, well, who are you? He goes, well, let me tell you what we do first. And he said, we're in the marriage business. We save marriages. And I thought, oh, well, this must be some, good Christian or Catholic based company. So
that's like marriage counseling.
Yes, it might be something really good. And I thought, that's kind of intriguing. I bet my wife Lori would probably like that, having a job there. And so when we finally got down to it, I said, I need to know the name of your company. And he said it was Priscilla's. Which is now I think they call Patricia's. But so
Patricia,
yeah. So
fun and fantasy me.
I got a good laugh out of that. So, anyways, I went home and I did tell Lori. I said, "Hey," she goes, "Well, what's the name of the company?" And I told her, and she said, "Well, you're not going to work there." And I said, "Well, they save marriages." She wasn't buying the slogan, so it didn't happen.
Well, to be fair, it would have been a little bit embarrassing too for me to tell my friends that my dad works for a sex toy shop.
Well, yeah, that probably wouldn't have gone over so well. So, we had some good laughs.
Yep. Well, do you have any last advice for people that want to get into accounting or anything like that you haven't covered already?
No, I'm just say, just keep in mind that, it's a great job. If you're going into, some people are drawn towards going into business in college, and I would say specialize into something like accounting is the best route to go. I've known people who just got a general business degree, and when they graduated, they're like, what am I going to do with this? Or I can't find a job for a general business major, right? So if you pick something like accounting that's more specialized, the jobs are out there, and you don't just have to sit there and just make debits and credits all day long, and do journal entries and all these things, or balance checkbooks, all these things. You don't have to do that. It's whatever you want to do with it, because it's a solid foundation to build upon to do anything that you want in a business. If you want to get into management, you can either stay in that accounting role, but you can get into a management role. You might even become an owner someday. You can be the CFO. You can do so many things with it.
Well, not to mention all the people that probably get business degrees because they want to start a business, and they don't have any idea how to do the books or how
That's
to,
right.
when tax season comes, how to work any of that stuff out,
Yep. I've never heard someone who got an accounting degree say that, I wish I wouldn't have got my accounting degree. But I've heard people who didn't have it, that maybe had business or an owner, and said, I wish I had some accounting classes or had an accounting major. It would have helped me a lot. In doing this. That's where I struggle the most, because some of the best entrepreneurs have these great ideas and they know how to implement things, but when it comes to the financial side, they really struggle.
Yeah.
And if they maybe had that background, it would have helped them a lot. Or hopefully they hire somebody who has that can help them and is an honest person.
Well, not to mention that you get to do your own taxes every year, and people
do your own taxes also.
It's probably a breeze, right?
I don't know if it's a breeze. I mean, taxes are tedious. At least they're computerized now. So I use TurboTax. I used to do them all by hand.
Yeah.
And so now that was very tedious.
Now don't you think it's kind of bullshit that the IRS doesn't do them for us? They already know if you're doing them wrong.
Well, they do get a lot of the information now that gets automatically sent to them by your employers. They get a lot of that, so I probably make that argument. But they don't know everything else about, like, deductions and things that you have. They don't necessarily know that. But
in crypto that we buy, we don't want them to know about
crypto
that.
to buy or anything like that. But I guess in these information age now, it seems like everything that we have is somehow on a computer somewhere and tracked somewhere. So they probably do know it all. We'd like to think they don't, but just like the government, they probably know everything about us.
And if they know so much about us, then they should be doing my damn taxes.
That could be. You could make that argument, but I don't know if they're ever going to do that. So,
Alrighty. Well, any last words?
I appreciate being on the podcast. Like I said, I certainly have enjoyed all the people that you've had on here, and I've learned a lot. And hopefully I've brought a few tidbits of information to people that are looking out. What does an accountant do? And can I do anything with that? The answer is yes, you can. And I would.
It worked out for you.
It worked out for me. I've never regretted it. I'm glad I'm not carrying mail anymore. Let's put it that way.
Yep.
I made the right choice. It's nice sitting in the office and seeing somebody bringing that mail in now and thinking.
I was gonna say, did you ever have that moment where you finally sat back and you're like, I'm glad I'm not that guy?
Yes, I have many times, especially on the days where it's snowing or it's 105 degrees outside, and I see them come in, and you bring a smile to my face thinking, I made the right choice. They've certainly got a good career there, but I'm happy with what I did.
Well, hell yeah. Thanks for coming on, Dad. Thanks for being my dad. Thanks for being a supporter of mine. Thanks for being my financial advisor when I was making reckless choices. And thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening, and thank you that you're actually doing very well saving money now.
Yeah, I am, shockingly.
Very proud of that.
Yeah, all right. It took a lot of work. All right, cheers, Dad.
All right, thank you. All right.